Good morning, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, the Global Education and Training Institute. And we are on our disruptive education platform provided to us by our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi, whose vision has led us to more than 600 such webinars with eminent educationists from India and all over the world. And today we have for you Mr. Anurag Gupta. He is the director of the Vidya Niket in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. He did his BCom in engineering from Bhopal, and he did his master's in digital communications from Melbourne, Australia. Then he worked in Australia as a business development executive and became an Australian citizen. He returned to India as an OCI in 2008. He got a business degree from Chennai and became manager strategy and business management in telecom in Gurgaon, now Gurugram. In 2012, he decided to start a school called Vidya Niket in Gwalior and did his B.Ed from Gwalior itself. He also provides consultation for CBSE affiliation and is a master trainer for the CBSE. He is a certified accreditor for the National Accreditation Board of Education and Training under the Quality Council of India. He conducts training for principals and teachers across India. As he says, he's a fitness freak, and he started a YouTube channel called Anurag Gupta and has an FB account called Listen to Anurag. So thank you, sir, for being with us. And he's going to be speaking on handling a virtual classroom. So thank you, sir, for being with us. And over to you, sir.
Thank you. A very good morning, Jai Hind, everyone. And I wish you all a very happy Lohri and Makar Sankranti. Today is Makar Sankranti. It's a holiday in MP. And I wish you all a very happy Makar Sankranti, and I pray to God that whatever we have been facing for the last almost 1 year should end now, and our businesses, our work, our lives should come back to normal. So with that thing in mind, I've been given the topic by GETI, that's how to handle virtual classrooms, and it is the most hot topic going on right now in the whole country in the teaching fraternity. Because in the pandemic time, when this all thing started, there was a high need of continuing the education without any halt. And that's how all these online systems came into picture. And we have started, everybody started learning how to implement this teaching new method in the new platform. So all of us who were not well versed with the technology and other systems, we started learning different tools, different technologies. The session today I will not be taking any technical aspect of virtual classrooms. I'll be dealing with this very common problems that as a teacher we fail, because the platform has changed, the interaction method is changed, the transition of the curriculum, the process of the process due to using which we do the transition of the curriculum is changed. So I'll be taking that aspect of teaching learning process through virtual classrooms. I'll be talking about the most difficult thing, or the most important thing, or the biggest challenge as a teacher that we face when we have a virtual classroom is how to retain the attention of the students in the online classes. Normally I take workshops for CBSE. I've taken more than 100 workshops during the pandemic time. So when we had this session, we have a when I take this topic, how to handle virtual classroom, because there's a module for CBSE that says how to handle virtual classroom. They've developed that. So in that, I normally have a two-way communication. We people can converse and they ask question. I don't have a PPT for this. All we do is I just put people put questions in front of me and I answer the questions. So the biggest problem that all of us face for online class in the online classes is retaining the attention of the student for a set particular time. That is the biggest issue that all of us have been facing. What I have certain points that I'll be discussing with you. That will I'm sure you all are doing that and everybody is well versed with the processes now because almost it's a year now. There's certain problems that online education has which cannot be taken off completely because virtual education or online education or virtual classroom is a concept that were designed for gap fill because when it came into the picture we had in mind that it will go for 3 months, it will go for 4 months, it will go for 5 months, or it will end. But unfortunately or fortunately, what you can say, it is continued for almost a year now, and almost this year has passed, and we have taken online exams also during virtual classroom. So let's start with that. What is the first strategy so that the span of attention is increased of your audience? The first thing that you need to do is understand the audience. Whenever we are teaching a topic, we know our students very well, but the interaction on the virtual classroom is absolutely different from the interaction in the physical classroom. So we need to understand our audience first, what are their needs, what they want, and what we have to do. We need to identify whether they are distracted. We need to identify, and that can be done only with a two-way communication in a restricted environment. So the first thing that you need to do is you have to we have do's and don'ts. We have do's and don'ts of our classrooms, of our protocols that has been sent to parents well in advance when we start the online classes. The first thing that we all have to do is make a short list of do's and don'ts, and you have to show it for at least 30 seconds or 1 minute before every class, because that is very important. Because when we take physical classes, we can say that this we don't have to do, this we don't have to do, and we have time. Here we don't have time. We have a half an hour session. In that we have to set up our gadget, we have to set up all the systems. It may be a problem for the network also. So beforehand, whenever you're taking a class, spend 30 seconds in make a PowerPoint slide or make a photograph or JPG certain thing that you show to your students before you start the class. That is your do's and don'ts of your online classes, and it should be precise and crisp. It cannot be just a big document, just 2 3 lines for 2 3 4 5 maximum lines, what they are allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. That is number one. That is you have to do to start with. We need to realize one more thing, that in the classroom, in the physical classroom, there's no other thing that child will be interested in. He or she will be looking at you only, because it's a restricted environment. But when we come to an online classes platform or a virtual platform, it's not a restricted environment. Student is at his or her leisure. He can have multiple screens, or she can have multiple screens in front of him or her, and distraction is very easy. So when you find someone distracting from your class or the topic, you need to pick that out. That is very important. So you have to keep a close eye. Second thing that you need to do is you have to be very clear about your organization and transitions. You have to be very clear about the organization and position. So for that, you need a proper planning. Proper planning means you make your lesson plans when you go for a class. The same thing, you need to make an online lesson plan that you have to keep in your mind. So I'm not talking about writing big documents and a lot of paperwork or documentation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about thinking of for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes before you start your class, what you will be doing for the next 30 minutes or next 40 minutes, because you have less time for transitions, you have less time to make mistakes. Otherwise you will lose the interest of your student. It's a very big challenge to have online education in India. It's a big challenge, believe me, it's a big challenge, but we don't have any other option right now. So to maximize your efficiency, to be effective in your online teaching, you need to be well prepared before your class, and that preparation takes thinking of 1 minute, thinking for 2 minutes before you start any session. That is very, 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 very important. You need to do that, because uh, students have wandered off digitally and physically. They have very explicit transitions, because nothing should be missed. Nothing should be missed, because in a proper classroom they can ask questions very easily, but in the digital platform asking question is not an easy task. Because it's not easy task, because if everybody start asking questions together, it will be a chaos. So all the transitions should be pre-decided, and your class should be well organized. Another very important point that you need to take care of while taking your virtual classrooms is cut back on the content. You would say, why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because it's hard for us to teach in an online way, because we are not getting into the minds of the students. There is a screen in between. When we are not able to check the gestures of the student, we're not able to check the body language of the student. So you need to differentiate between less important things and important things. So which you think can be studied using, or by giving a hint to your students, use that. Try to explain very important topics which they need a teacher to understand. So you need to make sure that if you put off take off less important or unimportant, that you less important or unimportant. I think it's live still or not.
Please stay on. Mr. Gupta will be back soon, and he's having some problems. He's back now with us.
Can you hear me, sir? It's all fine. Cool. So if you take off or identify the very unimportant or less important things, you increase the chance of losing your attention, or there's a high probability that your students will keep on, keep their interest alive in your classroom. Third thing is, you need to alter video aids. You need to alter video aids if you're using a PPT, if you're using a say whiteboard or electronic board or something like that. Try to put some more images, make it interesting so that they have something to look in your classroom, something to ponder upon, something to think, something changing. You cannot make it just a rote learning process, rote teaching process, and where you're saying something, you're just a one-way communication sort of thing. Let them involve themselves, alter your visual aids, have different types of things. Okay, I'm sure not every class can have this because you have certain topics to teach, but yes, what you can do is, um, before you take a class on a certain topic, just think about it one day prior to your preparation. I mean, when you prepare for your lesson, and try to put certain interesting things, such short videos, certain documentaries, any YouTube documentary for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, so that they have the interest alive. These are very small things that enable you to have, that enable you to retain their attention in your teaching learning process. This is very important. Another important thing is your oral communication skills. Whether you're teaching in Hindi or English doesn't matter. The point is here, this is only oral communication will work, because they will not be able to learn using your, I mean, in by your body language, because there is not proper eye contact. Because if you have 40 children studying, it's, you have very small boxes where you can see your children studying, so it will not work. All you have to do is do by using your voice only. So it has to be clear, it has to be, you need to be very clear, you need to be presentable, because everybody will be looking at your face when he or she is starting. And uh, you have to, your tone, your pitch, your volume should be enough that everybody can listen to you. And whatever you speak, whatever you speak is clear, because we cannot speak much on online class. Less time, less, I mean, we have got a lot of constraints, so we cannot speak much on online class. Very important thing again, just one more important thing, that is, in the online classes, as far as possible, try to create or try to maintain the eye contact with your students as far as possible. As far as possible, if you can, if you have the screen, try to create the eye contact with your students. Very important. One more thing that you need to make sure that you do, when you make a protocol, make sure that you ask questions in your classes by pointing out the names of your students who are present in your class, and ask them not to speak on the mic, but ask them to put their responses in the chat box, and you can note down those responses, and then you can read out in front of the class. Don't ask them to put on a mic when you're taking the class. And at the end of the session, if time allows, and if your system allows, have for 5 minutes a small discussion where someone can ask you a question in a dignified manner. So that do's and don'ts have to be made clear before you do this session, and that has to be taken care of very well. Have a discussion for the last 5 minutes or so, whatever time that has been allotted to you. That you are the best judge, I can't tell you that, but try to have a discussion also, because in online, because we have a habit of speaking, right? As a teacher, we have a habit of speaking. Same habit we the students have. They want to ask, they want to speak, because they're also getting bored at home. Also, they're also getting bored, they're not liking it. So give them chance to speak to you. Don't just end it by just teaching one way and end it. Don't do that. So you give them chance to speak, and you can make a timetable that roll number this will speak today, this will speak tomorrow, that you can work it out. And depends on the number of students that you have in your class. It can be easily worked out that which roll number, which student will speak today, or on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You can allot days, and that has this practice has to be told to them well in advance. But letting them speak in your class is very important to um, retain the interest of the students. A very another important thing is two things. Number one is interesting stories or examples, depending upon what you are teaching, which subject you are teaching. So please incorporate certain stories and examples in your teaching process. That will help students to maintain a long span of attention. More than that, I would say, don't forget the humor while teaching in your classrooms. It's very important. Don't forget the humor while teaching in your classroom. If you feel that your students are getting bored, use humor to refresh your speech and the whole atmosphere. That will bring back the attention of your students to you. That is very important, because but you need to basically be in the limits that you know what to do. For example, you may tell a joke or a funny story that will help the listeners to relax and makes the class less formal, or say, I would say, more friendly. Less formal or more friendly, and more friendly. What happens with this thing is a trust is made, or trust is built between the teacher and the students, and the attention span increases. They are more interested to listen to you, they are more inclined towards listening to you, and um, you will have to do less efforts in teaching them. So humor is very important. Without humor, nothing can happen. And that humor is, okay, what I'll tell you one thing. The teaching methods are same as we do in your classroom. Only thing is, we were doing it physically. Now we just have to look after or take care of certain things, because we have a system in place, we have a technology. It's not a physical classroom anymore. So certain things have to be changed, but the essence of teaching learning process will never change. All these things which I'm telling you are applicable in your classrooms also. These are very well applicable in your classrooms, normal classrooms also. Here, just because we have a lot of constraints of technology, or what you say, a lot of constraints of the system, of the platform that you're using. So this is slightly difficult than the normal class. But the way you conduct your normal class, all the things that you do in your normal class can be done in virtual classrooms also. um, except certain very fundamental things that you do in normal class, rest everything can be implemented in a different manner. But the essence of that process, the learning outcome of that process will be exactly the same. Only the way has changed, but that will always be the same. One more thing that you need to make sure is control and keep in tune with the audience. Control and keep in tune with the audience, and that can only be done when you have proper contact with your students. Either it's eye contact, or you are asking their and calling out their names and asking them questions and asking them to respond on chat boxes. This is very important, because when we are teaching, we always keep on asking our students, are they getting it, are they getting it? So are they getting it is not sufficient, because they'll say yes, we are getting it, but whether they are listening to you, you don't know. In the classroom, you can easily make out whether somebody is listening to you, and you can ask him to stand up and ask a question, and then he or she answers the question, and we see that how well we are teaching. So don't blame your students that they are not paying attention. If they're not paying attention, that has to be taken as our deficiency. That's something, there is a problem in us. Everything is fine. I would say the most important thing for you to keep the interest of your students alive is to ask questions during the session. If you don't do this, believe me, your classes will be very boring. And because for the attendance sake they will be coming and attending, but the outcome that you are planning, or the outcome that you have visualized, that you'll be getting this learning outcome after the end of the session or after the end of the term, will not be met out. So that is very important, that discussion mode is on, two-way communication is on, with a proper uh, with a proper protocol, with the proper procedures, with proper do's and don'ts, so that you have less time to get indulged in all these things, but you're able to deliver most in those 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So planning before the session, if because we are left with 3-4 minutes, because this is a half an hour session, because I have to take another workshop at 12 o'clock for CBSE. The thing is, number one, planning is very much important before you start the session. What you will be doing in next half an hour, that you need to decide 5 minutes before your session. That will give you the roadmap for the whole 30, 35, 40 minutes. Number one. Number two, try to maintain eye contact or a verbal contact with your students. Ask them questions and ask them to respond to them using chat boxes. Don't ask them to open their mics. At the end of the session, make sure you have a discussion, a two-way discussion, where they can ask questions and you can answer those questions. One thing I just forgot to tell you, keep a secret of your session and tell them that you will be learning a secret at the end of the session. That will basically keep the interest of your students alive. Tell your learners that you have a secret that you will be discovering at the end of the session, that you need to work out how you do it, but just tell them that there's certain thing waiting at the end of the session that will surprise you. This is just an activity to increase their attention. I mean, I can't tell you what activity you need to do. As a subject expert, you decide what you need to do, but make it a habit of disclosing something at the end of the session, so that they are stuck to you for the whole 30-35 minutes, and your attention span is increased. And the problem of because we need to make our lives easy. We need to make our lives easy. If their attention span is increased, if your attention is too much in the class, your effort will reduce, the results will improve, and certainly you will have better results, better learning outcomes, and most importantly, you will be happy as a teacher, you will be satisfied as a teacher, and all the stakeholders, whether your management, whether your parents, whether your students, they will be happy learners also. I met a parent of mine, and he just came to tell one thing to me. Sir, I just want to say one thing. I was listening to the live classes that our teacher was taking, and I was looking forward to listening to the name of my daughter in the classroom. And I was very happy that teacher took his her name. So parents expect these things from us too. They are watching us too. So keeping a contact with all the stakeholders. If you have online PTMs, you know what to do. But primarily, this session is for virtual classroom. Be connected to all the students as far as possible. Try to touch them at least once in your class if possible. Make it a habit. You may not be able to touch all of them, but yes, you will be, if you think that way, you will be able to touch the majority of them. So this is what I need to tell about virtual classroom. Pradeep sir, you can take over from here. This is what I need to say about virtual classroom. I hope I tried my best to tell you.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
no one to tell you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir, because there were a few points which you brought up, like the surprise at the end, which are very important for, to keep the attention going and, the curiosity levels up. It's very, very important for that. So, there's one thing, we've had a few problems with these online classes where there's been a certain amount of nonsense which has gone on because of sometimes it's the parent who misbehaves, sometimes it's a senior student who misbehaves. How would you handle that?
So there is a clear-cut policy that has been given by the government also. What normally we do is when we find such kind of miscreants or such kind of misdeeds happening in our online classes, we immediately take that person out of the class, immediately take out of the group, and there is a policy that the parent has to come and give us a written apology that this will not happen again, without which we will not allow the student to come back to the online class, come what may. This is the policy, and even the administration cannot ask you to do that because this is against the law. So we have a strict policy. Come to school, write an apology, and then we'll consider it.
So thank you so much, sir. And
Thank you, sir.
once again, we thank Dr. Sunita Gandhi for providing us this fantastic format where we meet people like Mr. Anurag Gupta.
My
And
pleasure.
today we thank Mr. Gupta for his very deep, illuminating talk on how to handle online classes. So thank you, sir, and good morning and goodbye.
Thank you a lot. Thanks for listening to me. Jai Hind. Namaskar.